Dude, every single time I do a podcast, it's a one take.
It has to be.
No, it doesn't. No cap. Someone could record a podcast, get halfway through, and be like, wow, this sucks.
Oh, yeah.
And start over.
Yeah, that's
Not
true.
me. Don't think that just because we're in the middle of recording a podcast, I won't get up, walk out of here, and go get Dairy Queen. You fucking bastard. Yeah! We're back.
I think we don't restart it because we don't want to do it over again, not because we're good at it.
This is the most miserable hour of my week. Every week.
We didn't do one last week, so would that mean that last week was...
The best week of my life.
Yes.
But we are also on tour, so the worst week of my life.
What is tour like for you?
Tour is a great time, man. I wake up, I edit photos, I load out and load in, all the gear, and a little fun fact about King 810. We have more merch than we have gear. So I load about 8 boxes worth of merch. And when I say boxes, I don't mean like a regular box, a big ass Tupper, whatever the fuck they're called, honking ass box. I load those in, I count the shirts, I put them out, I get it looking all good so King fans can come and mess it all up. And then we open the doors usually around 4 p.m. I sell t-shirts for 8 hours. I take pictures of the set. I load out and go to sleep in the van, and we do it all over again. Yeah! What's tour like for you?
Well, I almost feel like I'm not even in the same group that you're in then, because none of those things even sound familiar. I wake up usually a little bit before 7. Try to overcome depression. It never works. Sit down and have a coffee. Try to write. It doesn't work. Look for a gym. There's not one nearby. Try to read.
Does that work?
No, because then my jackass friends find me. Because they know I'm at the local coffee house.
This is around what? 10 a.m.?
This is around when they wake up, so around 11 a.m.
I'm still sleeping, by the way.
They disturb me for about an hour till I make up a reason to leave. Try to lose them. It usually doesn't work.
Because you're living in a van with them?
That's one reason. Then I put myself on autopilot and don't come out until about 1 in the morning when I snap out of the spell. There's really no secret, but I don't even really know what happened at any of the shows, who we saw or where we played.
I actually have a question about the shows. A personal question.
From you?
From me.
Okay.
So, to my knowledge, this is the first time that you've played a set since LPM came out where Heavy Lies the Crown wasn't the opener to the set.
You know more than me.
How does it feel? The answer might be there's no difference. But how does it feel to have that in the middle of the set? Because before it was this big grand entrance where just the drummer would be out there. And then the guitar player would come out, or no one would come out. And then Gene would come out, and then you would come out. And you would do the whole opening back home part off stage. Does it feel weird? Because that's a very open song.
I don't think I have an idea about it.
It just doesn't faze you.
These shows weren't the typical headliner set styles. We kind of went bare bones on everything. just to do kind of like club shows or whatever. So a lot of my faculties were kind of arrested in that I was trying to basically just get in club show mode.
Okay.
And I wasn't thinking I was important at all. We didn't even have a backdrop.
That's cool.
And there was no interludes, there was no, encores, there was no segments. It was just kind of just some jamming type shit.
People seem to be feeling it.
Yeah.
It could also be because we haven't played in America in over a year.
Something like that. I don't really know how long it's been, but yeah, I don't really feel it, I guess, as much. I like the more theatrical stuff. I like concerts, not shows.
Okay.
But the point of this was to play some shows, so
if they want to see a concert, they need to come out to the Devil's Night gig.
That'll be a concert in the space of a show.
And
it's called the Sanctuary. Yeah. I don't know. I just like a little more theatrical, a little more show. It's kind of you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. When we had all the theatrics in the stage show, they just wrote about us about how we're trying too hard, and it's like, what? Trying too hard to please fans? Wow, that's really something you should persecute someone for. And then if you do nothing, it's this band has a few more years until they're a headliner. You know what I mean? And it's just. Yeah, it's just bullshit, but I don't know. I kind of like the more spectacle shows. I don't feel like a regular dude out there rocking, so I don't like to act like one, I guess. Even though that sounds stupid to say, and no one really is trying to make that claim.
Well, no, we always make the joke that you're up there casting spells or something, dude, because who knows what the hell body movements you got going on up there. You're doing some sort of yoga mixed with a ritual.
I'm doing some Golden Dawn rituals from Israel Regardi.
Dude, I don't know nothing about that.
Well, you don't even want to. You don't even have to whisper because no one can hear us, and also it's a microphone so everyone can hear us. But
oh fuck.
Yeah. So when that Alfonso ran out on stage nude the other day at a show, I really didn't even know he was there. Did you see him?
Barely. I had the camera up to my eye, and I was looking at Gene.
Yeah.
And I just saw him out of the corner of my eye. It was pretty funny, though.
So that was kind of the spell. That's kind of the spell that I'm in. I don't really look at the crowd or care to identify with work the crowd or what people say frontmen are supposed to do. It's kind of just annoying. I don't like to look at the band either because they fucking suck. So I usually have my eyes closed. So when I come out, I don't even know if it's a good show or not, or if anyone's enjoying themselves. I like when all the lights are off and when the smoke is so thick you don't even know if the band has actually started playing yet.
We did that for a couple shows a couple years ago.
Yeah, that was cool.
It's just silhouettes moving up there.
Yeah, that's dope.
Should we get into some fan questions? Since I know
Sadly
there was a couple people asking me to ask you some things.
What, like at the merch booth or just
on the Instagram DMs? They be sliding in. Are you ready?
Do I have to be ready?
How do you think your music style changed over the years, and where do you see it going?
I think you follow it so you don't see it going anywhere. It leads the way. It kind of sees itself. That's the way I understand it anyway.
It's like a reflection of the things that are happening around you, so you can't really predict, next year we're going to make this album, or whatever.
Yeah, you can't. The only reason I can comment on where it's going is because I have so much already done, and I know I'll release it because I'm a big proponent of releasing things,
Yeah.
Even if they suck. But, or even if I don't like them. So I kind of just follow it, and it's hard to, ask something that's evolving what it's going to evolve into, I guess. I don't really know.
I guess let me follow up.
I was going to say I can clear up some things that people say. Some people say that Suicide King sounds like that because Beale had left the band or whatever. But Beale had never written any guitar parts, and me and Twerk wrote most of the first album on guitars. So the music is changing because we are changing it. And the same goes for LPM. The primary songwriters in the band are still in the band, so the music's changing because we are changing.
It would have made that change anyways.
Yeah, it doesn't have anything to do with who's in or out, because it'd be like saying if you change the cheerleading squad, the football team's gonna suck.
You got the same quarterback.
The same. Tom Brady's still in the pocket.
Are you calling yourself Tom? Dude, next question. Kind of a nice follow-up to that. I was wondering if there are any plans to release more King B-side tracks. And then they say Bad Man is one of their favorite King songs.
Well, I would like to say that Bad Man is one of the best King songs. It's not a B-side. So I don't know what the fuck that person's talking about. But
maybe just because it wasn't on
a record.
Right.
Well, half of our catalog's not on a record.
True.
Although that was just me arguing with you because they didn't say that. That was an assumption, but still, maybe, yeah, I assume we'll do a project between this record and the next one. I don't really know what it'll be like, but I'm trying to think of the best way to put it.
Because there is some unreleased stuff, right?
A lot. Maybe 3 albums worth.
Is it stuff that you just don't think is either up to par or just doesn't fit thematically on an album or sonically on an album?
I don't have the idea, the framework, or the understanding for an album that they belong on.
Okay.
Because, Trauma Motto was written for the first record.
Right. And Boogeyman
was with Midwest Monsters.
So what was it about those 2 tracks in that time period that made you feel like, no, it's not ready?
They still had the sauce. I thought they were still relevant. There are things that are not relevant today. Like, people say Brahma was not on a record, you should put it on one. It's just like, I was 19.
Dude, that's crazy.
We're not doing that. I'm not. It's not about not being on a record. It doesn't. I'm very confused when people say it because it's not any less locatable. It's not any harder to find. You can pull up your Spotify or your YouTube or whatever the fuck people use because they damn sure don't buy no records, and you can spin that stuff just the way you spin a record. I don't know where the. I was having this conversation with a friend of mine earlier. She was talking about something about a project she was doing, and I was just thinking out loud. I was being a bad conversationalist, but singles and LPs and EPs and all these B-sides and A-sides, they don't really matter, do they?
It doesn't matter how it's released. It's just the fact that it's out there that should matter, right?
I don't understand. The only thing that I can kind of understand is the marketing dollars that's put behind real records,
Well, let me ask you about a band that's not King. That new Slipknot record, they put that song out, the All Out Life, what's it called, the street single? And then
the street single's usually not the hit, but it's the heavy one that they call the street single because it's for their what they call their fans, or their hardcore or their diehard fans. It's the uncool single, which is kind of counterintuitive because it's a single. But
they didn't put it on the album. So why do you think, they put out this song and it had a music video and it was the first song that they had released
What was it called?
All Out Life. It's the music video is like they're not in it. It's just a bunch of people wearing like the masks and like there's blood everywhere, and it's a heavier song.
Maybe it didn't do well, or maybe it was exclusive to something else, or something. I don't know. There's usually a reason behind those types of things, though.
It just seems curious because they played it live when I went and saw them, so it wasn't like a throwaway. They put it out, they played it. It just wasn't on the album. Which it seems like in the age of streaming, you see rappers do this all the time, where they'll put out. I'm trying to think of what's a good example. They'll put out a song.
Cardi was one. Cardi's the best example. She put out the No Flockin' freestyle. What was it called? Her
Money Moves or whatever.
Money Moves or whatever.
It's called.
Yeah, and
It was a single.
when she put it on her record 2 years after
It counts.
it had blew up, then since it had 1 billion streams, that's equivalent to 20 million records sold.
Right.
It makes it to where that album that has a single that's 2 years old is now 10 times platinum.
Right.
Because of that one streaming smash. To me, hip-hop just does it right, kind of. Dude, it's like Silicon Valley. Their idea of if you're not embarrassed by your prototype, then you waited too long to release it. It's kind of like put it out, see how everyone feels,
Right.
make the changes, I don't necessarily agree with that artistically. It's kind of how businesses ran, but not art. But the industry that is music is a business, not artistic at all. So I think it's a good way to finesse the streaming world, which needs to be finessed, because there's no
You don't
way.
make money.
No.
Okay. Here's another question. There's a lot of background to this one on this person's personal life, but I'll just get to the question. You've kind of already answered this, but they said they were at the Hobart, Indiana show, and the stage presence, it was their first King show. The stage presence was quite different than what they expected from a King 810 performance. No AKs, no guards, no smoke, etc. They weren't let down. The performance was great. It was just curious as to what the change was, and if those types of shows were reserved for larger stages.
Yes and no. Those types of shows, it's not like a cookie cutter where we are thinking, oh, let's bring that type of show. We did that for 2 years. It was on a record. It's kind of cool when someone sees you for the first time after 3 albums. But we can't keep playing the same live show, because for every person that's seeing us for the first time, there was someone that told me that it was their 18th time seeing us. So if we brought the same show, I don't think that person would come the 19th. So we try to do a different show, even if it's not as good. And I mean that theatrically. So even if we roll in there with nothing and rock on a bar floor, it's just something different.
Right.
I don't know, anything that we do, I have a real... People kind of get caught up in the idea of the facade that they want to portray, but I kind of just want to do different stuff. Every time we do something, do it different, even if seems like it might not be a step up.
A step is a step, though.
Yeah,
Right. Like
it's just movement. To me, it's just movement and vibration, and that's what's essential. One of my favorite people, Henry Rollins, he'll go to the spoken word poetry club and do a poetry reading unannounced with absolutely no promotion, not even tell anyone about it, for 15 people, because he wants to. It's kind of like, whenever you come, you're not going to, whatever you expect to see us do, you're probably not going to see it, because we're not going to do the same thing, which is why we suck, and people don't really like us, because they say, where's that old shit? It's like, they could be talking about anything. They could be talking about old shit, 10 years, 8 years, 7 years, 6 years, it's all old shit. Obviously, there's no future shit. So
Unless
it just
that's
means
us
the
bumping
era.
future before the fucking show.
It just means the era that they're familiar with, but...
I think it's funny when people ask you to play Midwest Monster songs, or how come you don't play Midwest Monster songs? And it's like, we do, every single night. We play
I
one.
know they're so stupid, but the answer really doesn't even matter because I think like most people's questions, it's rhetorical. But I don't know. It's just the aims of the show. We were going to places that we've been, places we grew up playing, in Indiana, and those were the types of shows we came, almost like hardcore style shows, you know.
Right.
And that's what we did for this one because that's kind of what it reminded us of. We don't save the show for the bigger crowds when there is, but it's usually causation and correlation.
Right.
Usually when there's a bigger audience and there's a bigger thing, there's a bigger budget, there's more stage to work with, there's more of a advanced, there's a better sound, there's more things you can do. You know what I mean? So they're not mutually exclusive, but they do have some type of correlation. But no, we don't roll into gigs like there probably won't be a lot of people at this one.
Better put the guns away.
Better not do anything. I roll into every gig thinking that. I roll into everyone thinking this fucking sucks. So I'm going to give them the same shitty show I gave the sold-out crowd last night, you know.
Another example would be not the last time we were in England, but the time before. At a couple of the shows, there was a couple of the acoustic or whatever you want to call them songs that got played. Like you played Take It and you played
a lot of Queen
stuff. So I don't know. Sometimes.
Well, every time we play, we try to do the Metallica where they play different songs, you know.
Yeah.
We try not to play the same set list. At least one different one. One different song in the area. We won't go back to the same area and play the same set that we played there last time we were there, you know. So the Queen shit sucked. Everyone was just drunk and talking over it, and that's pretty much why we. I don't know. The way I think about it is what I like and what I prefer. Probably not the status quo, because as I've said 100 times before on this thing, when I look out in the crowd, I don't see a bunch of me's. I see a bunch of different people with a bunch of different ideas and opinions.
To counter that, though, or to go with it, the acoustic show that was in Flint last December, or the December before, I thought went really well. Because it was people were there to see the acoustic stuff, so it seemed like it went over well. But throwing the stuff in the middle of the set, maybe, people were just war outside.
Yeah, it was kind of billed as that, and that was probably the how it should be, right?
But all right, we'll get to another question from that same person.
This is probably you.
These are all just me. It's just stuff I want to know. This is one you've also already answered today, but did both Andrews leaving affect the music at all? Any word on replacement members? Permanent replacement members, they specify.
Yeah, that's weird because, Beal had quit the band 3 times. He wasn't a permanent replacement member to begin with. But it's strange when someone asks, are there any permanent replacement members, as in you know how long they'll be here, or if it matters how long they're here.
Right. Because what difference does it make?
Yeah.
I guess maybe if it was like, oh, we're getting so-and-so from this band to come in. And, you know what I mean?
That is something that I really hate and don't want. Good guitar players that I know will probably be playing guitar in King, and good drummers that I know will probably be playing drums in King. As far as the sound changing, no, the sound's going to change every record regardless of who's in the band. No one's in, it's not really a secret. They'll tell you that their input was minimal. Everyone knows that, I feel like. I guess I'm trying to think of a different way to put it since I kind of already answered it, but...
Seems pretty straightforward at this point.
Yeah, there's no other way to say it, but when you say it, people just act like you didn't.
I think it's because people have a real hard time with the concept of the guitar player not writing most of the music. Most bands, it seems like that's the guitar player or maybe a drummer or something. It's like the lead music creator.
Well, in King, it's not.
And
I don't know how else to say it. It doesn't sound like it is. So when you think and you're like, most bands, the guitar player is the lead creator. Well, King doesn't sound like that. So that's probably
Right.
not. That's probably a part of the difference.
Could David see himself ever directing a feature film in the future?
I thought all the videos we did were features.
Maybe they mean full length, like a real ass movie. Like an hour and a half, 2 hour long.
Well, of course. You know, we're doing this. I wrote a book. I'll probably write a few more. I'm not just going to stop. Yeah, of course. I would want to make movies, act in movies, make and do anything. It was a dream that I had as a kid. I don't know if we ever talked about it, was I wanted to direct a Cirque du Soleil show.
Like the actual live performance?
Yeah.
Okay,
the
not like
circus.
a recording of it.
No.
Okay.
Direct a show.
Okay.
Art director.
That would be cool.
I have no clue how that would ever happen, but just to let you know, that's where my mind's at. So a feature film is pretty much a no-brainer.
Do you have
actually
any?
written
Okay,
one? Yeah, I have about 4 written. One was a short that Queen was the soundtrack to. Just never got around to making it.
Maybe one day.
Maybe one day. I had another short that was kind of what would it be? Almost like a romance drama, kind of dark humor script that I'd written. Has been based on a true story, of course. I had another one as well, but I haven't met anyone in movies. I know the only person I know that does movies is Nick.
Okay, yeah.
It's like B-horror movies, which
Isn't really your style.
not even a little bit. Although there are a few movies that I really like that are kind of like that, but not really. But yeah, hopefully sometime sooner than later, right? What is it, 30? I'm sitting here being 30. Now there are still some directors that didn't make their first movie at my age.
Well, that's like a thing that you can kind of do no matter how old you are.
Yeah, I just like to keep looking around, you know, like when did Nolan do moment, you know.
You ready for another question? This is a real fucking head scratcher.
Wow, great.
So in the Genius annotations for heartbeats, you said you attended, I'm probably not going to pronounce this right. You can correct me. The Ayahuasca ceremony?
Ayahuasca.
Oh, okay. Ayahuasca. I know you are very firm on your beliefs of no drugs. Did you partake in the ceremony?
Yeah, it was, I'm trying to, put it together the way
I could ask some follow-ups, I guess. Expand on their question.
I don't want to say this is the answer, because it sounds stupid, but I don't look at it as a drug,
That's
I guess.
what I was going to ask. Do you consider ayahuasca a drug?
I don't want to say, I don't do drugs, never have, never will, but I do this because I don't think they're drugs, because that's kind of funny, right?
Right.
That's a pretty funny answer.
You can,
but
because you could just say, "Oh, I don't think weed's a drug." I guess I've talked to some people that say that. They're like, "Oh, well, they find out I'm straight edge, quote unquote." They're like, "Oh, I'm straight edge too. I just drink sometimes." Like,
yeah.
I don't think that's how that works. But.
Not doing drugs is the result of a handful of beliefs. It is not the belief itself.
You're not doing drugs because you think it's cool to not do drugs or something?
I'm not doing drugs as a result of having individual reasons for each drug.
Right.
But then there's also overarching beliefs and things. But yeah, went out into the Amazon rainforest, high jungle, Peruvian shaman. Like I said, that's the shaman in the song.
Yeah. You snuck a recording. You weren't supposed to, right? Or were they really not?
Well, they never told me not to because they only spoke Spanish.
Right.
So
They probably didn't even know what cell
I
phones
recorded
were.
everything. I had a journal, and I was recording some things too. I wasn't really on Instagram. I was just making Susie use my Instagram for me then, or else I would have probably documented it better.
Right.
As far as maybe not when I was there, because there was no, there was one sat phone. There was no electricity. There was no one was together. You were alone in a hut with nothing in it. The food came off the tree twice a day. Complete vegetarian. 10 days. Amazon. Peruvian shaman ceremony at night. Mixed up his barks and his leaves, the Mimosa hostilis and other types of roots. He did his brew, and he, after hanging out with you, he gives you what he thinks you require.
So did you talk to him through a translator, or was it? Did he just kind of feel the vibe?
We were feeling each other, man. He was, you lay down on the jungle floor. It's 9 and 10 at night. You drink what he gives you. He starts dancing, and these icaros, the songs that they sing, his instruments, and he sings and dances for 5-6 hours.
Holy shit.
And to describe it would just be an error on my...
You kind of just have to experience it. Like the bull. Go listen to the bull run episode.
Yeah. Well, you shouldn't call Bob down the street to come give you ayahuasca. Let me tell you that. That's not what you should do. Because Bob, who knows what he's doing down there? Same with anything, man.
This person had a follow-up question.
What was it?
If King, I'm reading it verbatim.
Wow.
If King decides to rip up the American Southeast, how could me and my boy on y'all's live band crew? We both ugly as fuck, but we can fuck shit up. And then they go on to say that you probably don't remember, but you met him in Nashville a couple years ago.
I have no clue what the fuck you just said.
I think they want to play in King.
Next question.
Next question. This is actually the last one that I have. So,
good.
If I missed anyone's question, I guess hit my DM. But an even better way to ensure that I get to your question is to smash that MF and donate button.
Dude.
Here we go. I was wondering what you think about people who desperately want to make a living completely off of music, but a full-time job in the meantime. I've heard many musicians make snide comments about people who can't commit from the beginning, but they're also the same people who got signed in their early 20s in the 80s. Which is funny because it implies that these people talking shit are in their 60s.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's funny that a 60-year-old man is talking shit to him. But I do understand what he's saying. I kind of got to pause because at the beginning it said, tell me what you think of people. And it's like, I don't think anything of any of you. I don't know any of you, so I think nothing of it. But it's a good point to me because I found it a lot in our own careers when we were coming up. A lot of people were comparing us, say, to Slipknot. And they didn't realize that had happened over 15 years before us, and that the world was so different. They were just not willing to accept it. People, they have this, the revisionist history, where they cherry pick these ideas from the past, and they kind of make them as law. But, you know, there's examples for anything. Any example you can dream up, we can come up with a counter example, and so on and so forth. So, if you want to make a living off music, you have to find a way to monetize something. And that sounds pretty stupid and common sense, but I'm not saying you have to sell music or you have to do something, but you have to monetize something. There has to be a revenue stream. A lot of people don't understand that when you decide you're a musician, you don't just start getting paid. There's a good chance you'll probably never get paid, actually. And I think we talked about this in the past. If you're working 8 hours a job and then you go home and work on music, you better be working it for another 10, because, you know, there's people out there that aren't even doing the job. They're skipping that part and just doing the music the whole time.
Right.
So I always use the analogy, if I take off running right now and I'm heading towards my musical goal and you go to work and so you'll catch up with me in 8 hours, and that's just one day, how the fuck do you think you're ever going to catch me? I'm not saying that it's not possible, because the cool thing about the entertainment industry is that there is a little bit of luck, and it's not a quantifiable skill. You know, some people, it's not, this guy's so talented. He's going to get all the money. The money is not placed with someone with all the skills. I think all the advice is dated. All the advice out there is pretty shitty. None of it actually works. And then the stuff that does work is very corny, very stupid, and it works for people that are not enigmas or people that are not great. Like, like I consider my own self to be, even though I fucking suck. What people don't realize is when you're chasing after this goal and when you're feeling yourself, the ego that you may have is like your greatest bodyguard, because no one is out here creating stuff without one single fan thinking they suck. You have to believe in yourself, even though it's corny, before anyone does. Which is really stupid because, if I believe I'm fucking Walt Disney status, and then, we get a deal and we become popular and everyone's like, look, he's feeling himself. It's like, well, how do you think I got here?
Right.
I was really feeling myself. And it's also hard because, people are right when they say that people aren't committed who aren't doing it full time, because they're not. I mean, if I practice, 16 hours a day and you do 4, I can call you not as committed as me, because you're not. Doesn't mean that I'm doing 4 more times the work, because who knows, but my advice is to what I did when I was a kid. I'll just tell you what I did instead of giving you advice, because I don't want to give you advice because I'm not sure that it'll work. Number 1, I didn't have a child. Everyone around me had them. I have 9 fucking sisters. They all have 100 of them. I have a bunch of friends, and they all have teenage kids, and they're my age. So I made sure that everything that I did was consistent with what I wanted. Once again, this is pretty stupid because there are millions of people way more successful than me that have 100 children. You know what I mean? Elon Musk has a dozen of them, and they.
Does he really?
No, but he has a few.
Oh.
But there are people way more successful than me that have children. That's the shitty part about describing advice, because you can always find.
Apply to everyone.
No, it doesn't apply to everyone. One thing that to me is you just have to be true. You just have to, be true to yourself, which is another corny thing to say, but I'll give you an example besides that. But the first thing is, I wanted to do music, so I never worked. People are like, oh, well, I can't do that. It's like, neither could I. I still did it. And what that meant was I just didn't have any money. And then after a few years, I was like, well, I'll just get into the drugs. You know what I mean? And people are like, oh, I can't do that. And it's just like, well, neither could I, but I still did it. You know what I mean?
Right.
I feel like when you talk to people and you say, I wish I could, they say, I wish I could just not care as much as you don't. And it's like, no, I'm fully aware of what I'm doing. I'm choosing it. You know, say I'm sitting next to you at a job and I just walk out the back door. You can do that too. You just don't want it as bad. That's most people. Most people just don't want it as bad by my estimation. When you are listening to your girlfriend bitch, or when you are going out and drinking and doing drugs, or having kids, or doing whatever, and you're already having a hard time committing to your music, it's just like you're creating more commitments. So when I was growing up, I didn't do any of that stuff. It sounds like a shitty life, and it was. But this was more important to me. So, and every girl that I've ever known, which is thousands of them, they'll tell you that this was always more important than them. And that's not that cool, but... And it's not really my advice either, but it's what I did, and I don't think I'm successful by any stretch of the imagination, but I was kind of at peace with that. And I think people's thoughts are pretty much bullshit. And I was having a conversation with Alfonso when we were on the tour about this. He's a good frontman. He's a good singer. He works the crowd. He talks to them. He engages them. He does all this stuff. I don't do any of that, and I just be myself, which is an uncomfortable, depressed, suicidal idiot. By anyone's estimation, he's a better frontman, and I heard this pretty much my whole career from everyone who watched everyone that we toured with and say, look how he's got the crowd eating out of the palm of their hands. He's such a great frontman. He's da-da-da-da-da. You got to do more of this. But to me, they weren't even being themselves. They were just being good frontmen. And I have a real conflict of interest when it comes down to being a good frontman. The problem is I'm not myself. It's counterintuitive to me, and it's not something I'm comfortable doing, so I don't. So, say I'm in this band King, and we get a major label record deal, and Fonz, this is the conversation we were having, his band doesn't, and we've been playing together since we were kids. People will say that I'm a charismatic, enigmatic frontman that is just powerful and commanding, and look at that. Look at me. Look how I don't give a fuck. Look at this. People will say whatever they'll say about Fonz. It doesn't even really matter. They don't. My point is, when our band and Fonz's band were playing the whole time, and this was the conversation that we had, no one said, "Look at how commanding and powerful and what a good frontman he is," because there was no social proof. But then when we were quote unquote successful to some people, I was that. And it's only because of that confirmation bias, that knowing the ending to the movie, right, and placing your bet on it.
Because you're successful, they think it's, they can just say whatever.
And I'll say by their estimation, because there are people out there who don't believe that I am, and they're probably right, but by their own estimation, who don't feel that way. And that's kind of funny, right? If these people think that I am, they also think I'm such a good frontman because of look. But the people that don't think I'm necessarily successful say that they considered myself to be in a failing band. They don't think I'm a great frontman.
So it's for the same reasons.
Right.
That people think you're good, they think you're bad.
Exactly. And I've heard this 100 times. So it's very hard to give advice to this person, because he's right in the sense that all of the advice is old and dated and shitty, and it's really not good at all. And it also doesn't pay your bills. That's what people don't understand when you enter the industry. You have to decide what you're talking about. Are you talking about the music industry? Or are you talking about being a musician? Those are not the same things. I can create music all day, every day in my room, and it's going to be perfectly fine, and it won't cost me any money. This to me is why I think hip hop wins, because there's no overhead like there shouldn't be. There should be no overhead when you have no employees, you have no product, you have no talent, you have no skills, you have no experience. You should have no overhead. Bands aren't like that. If I want a guitar, an amp, a fucking van, a trailer, a drum set and stuff, I got to go spend 30 grand just to start.
Just to start making music.
Yeah. Then I have to go around pounding the pavement playing shows, so people start liking me and buying tickets. Okay, so when they buy tickets, you know what that means? I'm charging them to do something that I was doing for free. And it's fucked up. And it's bullshit how they kneecap art, because it's like, okay, it's an art industry. Well, there's no such thing. There's an industry, and then there's art. Those are two separate things. I think we talked about that in the past as well. The minute it becomes an industry, you have to reset your integrity bar. And there are many ways to make a lot of, things work. But what I think is you keep your overhead down, just like a small business. You don't acquire expenses you don't need in life. Keep your overhead down. And it's really not even a complete answer. I really don't even feel good about the answer itself. Everyone is talking about the old business or the old model. It's almost as if the industry doesn't even really exist as much anymore. There are a bunch of avenues, but people these days think if you have 1 million views on YouTube, you have $1 million. And that's really hard to deal with, because, especially in metal, they discourage monetization of anything because they think it cheapens the integrity of whatever the brand is, but they're not realizing that it's a brand and it's a product and there's no integrity in it.
Right. It's that term selling out.
Yeah. It's wrong, because in so many ways. And the industry, in hip hop, they embrace it completely. They say, I'm not coming to play your show until you have the money sitting there. I'm not even walking through the door. And in rock, it's they think you're a rock star. Like, a rock star's a bad thing. It's just a bunch of sensitive ass pricks that are full of shit. We talk about this all the time. Like, when we talk about the term tough guy, like, it used to be like, oh yeah, he's a pretty tough guy, but now it's like, oh, tough guy. Like, tough guy's a bad thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? Having money's a bad thing. Being successful is a bad thing. And it's
almost like
it's
a
stupid.
jealousy.
That's all it is. Yeah. This is only said by the people that
don't have money,
that don't have any of that.
Right.
But my problem is it's championed all the way down the ladder from the top. They still act like they're them. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's just not true. When you look at these groups, they're multi-millionaires and they're still acting like they're one of you in the crowd. They're not. They're not anything like any of you. They're on a whole different plane. And to me, that's dishonest to just still act like you're there. You know what I mean? So it's hard. It's a hard question to answer, because the first thing is you shouldn't. Another thing is you shouldn't listen to really anyone. He said something like, "Could you give me some advice if people want to do music?" People kind of comment saying that you're not fully committed or whatever. Well, the number one thing is you don't listen to anyone. Not anyone, your family, not your friends, nobody, especially not your family and friends. And yeah, I wish I could kind of answer it better.
The answer is kind of, there's no right answer. Everyone kind of has their own path if they want to be, to success.
Yeah. Everyone has their own path, and it doesn't mean it leads to success.
Right.
I don't know how to say it, but I'm at peace with anything, anything that may come. I have no expectation, as we always joke. Your number one marketing scheme, plot, plan.
Drop it and hope it goes viral.
That's your number one.
Because to me, there's nothing else you can do.
Yeah, it's all.
And that's a simplified version, but it could apply to anything.
Yeah, not just music, just
the movie industry. When they release an indie film in a few markets, they're dropping it and hoping it goes viral, and like Hereditary did.
Even to the extent where they'll stage virality, right? Like Bird Box.
Yeah.
The Bird Box Challenge. It's like, no, that was made up.
Right.
And they paid for that, and then it caught on, which, it's good marketing and cool. P.T. Barnum, I'm familiar with all these ideas, but doesn't really mean anything. One thing you shouldn't do, whatever that dude asked, and I don't know if this is even relevant, but you shouldn't leverage your emotions or your feelings on how the rest of the world responds, if at all. I feel just as good about these few hundred songs sitting on my hard drive as I do if I were to release them. I don't all of a sudden think because I put out whatever that I'll be anything more than what I really am. And it's also just always a work in progress, so it's none of this shit matters. When we put out an album, I don't even check my messages the day of. This shit doesn't matter. It's not gonna. It only matters to the people it matters to, and that's it. But to the rest of the world, it just keeps moving. So I'm glad, when it changes people's lives and these things. But pretty much everyone else sucks. I don't really know how else to put it,
Right. Yeah.
But one problem that I do always bring up, and I've brought it up a few times, is you can find a case in point for anything.
You can find someone that's successful that posts on social media every day, and you can find someone that's successful that doesn't have social media.
Yeah. One thing that really gets to me is when people kind of parrot these rules like they're real. Like, oh, you just need social media today. It's like, no. What you're saying is you do. Or you heard that somewhere. But there are plenty of people who are anonymously rich that don't have it. Or if you tattoo your face and dye your hair, you'll be a good SoundCloud rapper.
Right.
It's like, how come the biggest rapper in the world's neither of those things? It's just ridiculous and stupid. But that can be said for anything, even outside of music, People it's the same for anything. School. Like, I always get pissed when entrepreneurs tell people to drop out of school. It's like, no, that's what you should have done. But these people, most of them are stupid. They need that structure. They need that facility. If you have to be convinced to drop out, you should not be dropping out. If I have to convince you to leave your job, you should not leave your job. Because I needed no convincing. No one told me to do it. I just walked out. It just
felt like the right thing to do.
Something I had to do. Someone has to convince you. If you think someone's cool and they're telling you something to do, that's not good. That's not good news.
You shouldn't have to be talked into something or convinced of something.
Right. That's why I always think the motivational shit's bullshit. I gotta listen to a speech to go into the gym.
Right.
No.
You should want to be in the gym. That's why I don't go to the gym, because I don't want to.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. And you have to attach it to something bigger than you, but that's just a whole different point.
Well, I think I just got one more thing to say, unless you got some more points to make.
That was pretty short.
It's like an hour. How wild was last night?